Today on Doomed! Collusion, skepticism, obstruction, media failure? What's going on here? Well, on this episode of Doomed, we'll discuss what's going on here. We're going to talk the mostly released Mueller Report with Media Matters editor-at-large Parker Molloy. I'm your host, Matt Binder, and you're watching and or listening to Doomed. All right, everybody. I am going to bring us up now on the YouTube live stream. There, you could see us. Parker Molloy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to. Last time I was on, I was in a hotel, which was weird. So this time I'm at least at home. So,
wow,
yeah.
You remembered that? That's wow. It means that you
must. It was kind of sweet. This hotel that I was in. It was the only hotel in my life that came with like a dining room.
What?
Because it was booked on like super short notice, so they accidentally put me in like a much too nice hotel. So which is fine by me. I mean, I'm always up for that. But yeah, it was like I was in this weird little dining room of this hotel, and well, but anyway,
that must be
that's where I was when I was filming that.
Cool. I mean, I would love to have a dining room in a hotel. I don't know, but did you ever like you're somewhere obviously where you're staying somewhere. Who would go back, bring the food back home? I guess if you're gonna, was there a kitchen so you could cook at the hotel? That would make sense.
Yeah, it was small though. So here's the fun thing though. It was I had a banana and I put it in the trash, but I didn't want to like. I always feel bad having people like clean up after me in any way. So I was just like, I'm just gonna not have anyone come clean the room. I was there for like a week, and so I had this banana in my room, and I was like, it smells terrible. It's just sitting in my little trash can. I could move it, and I just didn't know what to do. It was the middle of the night, and I took the trash can, and I just like I placed it in the fridge. I was like, I'll keep it cool, keep the smell over there, and it was I don't know. I'm barely an adult. In my 30s, barely an adult.
Listen, you're not telling me anything that I haven't probably. I've probably been even worse than that in terms of just. I guess the accurate way to describe just sheer laziness. I guess on.
Yeah. It's like I could have taken the thing and moved it down to the lobby, but at that point,
Right. Well, as you know, Parker, something really big happened today, and it involves dining rooms and hotel rooms. So that's why we're talking about this, obviously. And no, let's actually, let's bring this up real quick. It's not why I had you on, but it's sort of impossible to not talk about, I guess, the Biden in the room.
The Biden.
Right. You like that?
Yeah. I think it needs the Biden in the room creeping up slowly behind you to rub your shoulders in a weird way or something along those lines.
Just take a whiff of my hair.
Yeah.
See what needs to be.
It's gonna be a weird campaign.
What needs to be done is all the women who are running for president need to just, when they know they're going to be on stage with Biden somewhere, they need to just not wash their hair for like a week. And that will nip that in the bud. I think it will. I think Biden will take, he seems like a guy who, well, he certainly won't get the message, but I think he seems like a guy who, I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's what I would do. So Joe Biden, everybody, has decided to jump into the presidential primary race. And he released his video today. And the one thing I noticed about it was that unlike every other candidate, even the candidates that I'm not much of a fan of, I should say, unlike even those candidates, Joe Biden is single-handedly, thus far, making his candidacy about Trump. There seems to be nothing behind it, policy-wise, idea-wise, other than he wants to stop Trump.
Yeah, which it would be nice to know where he stood on anything.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, you have a general idea based on the fact that he's been in politics forever, but I mean, a lot of his views have changed over time, and you know, but it would have been nice to see something that was a little more policy based, and kind of weird to double down on that, because it was something that the Clinton campaign did towards the end, especially, was that messaging where it's Donald Trump is an aberration from Republican kind of idea, which, you know, I mean, that campaign did not win. So
right.
People can draw their own conclusions on whether that's the right route to go again this time. But I feel like now when candidates are getting in there, they're trying to just do something that makes them stand out. Like what was the one thing Klobuchar had where it was just like, I'm going to stand up by being funny. And
right. Yeah, so boy.
You know, which. Okay, you know, but
she had her. She was very funny when she had her Jeb Bush moment on Monday. Her. That's where you clap or applaud in one moment. Yeah, that was. Ugh.
I want to make like a compilation of that, because that was that. So you know that tape that everyone was freaking out about, the one where Ilhan Omar said, some people did something that people on the right freaked out about.
Right.
I went and watched that whole speech because obviously I wanted to see what the whole context was,
and that's what you do.
It wasn't worth getting up. Yeah, you know, that's what a normal person does. And it was like a normal length speech. It was like 20 minutes. It wasn't one of those like you have to watch the 4 hours of 4 hours of the Covington Catholic kids or something like that. But in her speech, there's one moment where she says something, and then there's kind of an awkward pause, and she goes, "It's okay, you can clap." And I was like, Jeb! Right. And I just wonder, like, I was like, how often does this happen to politicians?
Right.
You know, I kind of want to, like, make a compilation video of just all these awkward, like, pauses and requests for applause.
Right. I think the awkwardness, and this is coming from someone who's probably done this myself, before I got used to it. I think when you have a lot of people watching you and there's a moment of silence, a long pause, you just get uncomfortable and feel like you need to break up that silence. I can tell you right now, people, that silence is not as weird as it feels, and it comes off much more natural than you just filling it up with something like, can you guys applaud or something? You know, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So Biden is what really interested me was Biden was trending on Twitter, and Anita Hill was trending right up along there with him. And then his campaign was pushing out that, you know, before he decided to run, he reached out to her, and they worded it in a way where, I don't have the wording right in front of me, but they worded it in a way where if you just read the Biden side of things, it sounded like they came to some sort of, thanks for calling me, I appreciate that. But then Anita Hill put out, was contacted by the Daily Beast or an outlet like that, and she was like, Biden didn't apologize to me, and frankly, whatever he said to me wasn't anywhere near something I would consider as an apology. He's got to do better.
You would have thought that they would have really tried to get that. Like that was an obvious issue that has been brought up to him for years. Why would he? First off, why would he have gone this long without saying something to her? You know, even at this point, because I think the statement was something like he expressed his regrets or something like that, something weird where it was like, wait, did he apologize or not? You know,
right?
But.
Oh, and he regretted something. It was like he regretted what she went through or something like that, as if he was some sort of like like he had nothing to do with it. He was like just there in the room or something.
It's like I don't know. Sorry you went through something, but it was weird. There was that, and then was it Heather Heyer's mom was also someone asked her whether his campaign reached out, and in fairness, in that case, it's like he didn't mention her name. He wasn't like name dropping her dead daughter's
Right.
name or using her photo or anything like that. But at the same time, it still seems a little distasteful. I guess I can see why people are mad about it. I guess
Right.
is what I'm trying to say. I know nothing about how to run a campaign, so
Right.
I'm just along for the ride.
Well, it sort of actually plays into his whole issue where he sees Trump as a unique problem that is unaffiliated with the Republican Party. I think he views Charlottesville as some sort of event that was unique in terms of white supremacy and what's going on. I don't think he understands what's going on, to be honest. And I know people like to knock other candidates for not understanding what's going on, and in some areas it's true for each candidate, I would say. But I think with Biden, it's all around. He doesn't understand what's going on. I don't think he gets like the moment we're seeing with progressives. I don't think he sees the moment we're seeing with certain policy. I don't think he gets the I mean, think about it. Every candidate has come out and basically said they want to, even if they still are going to accept that bundled money or whatever, they've said or at least try to raise small dollar amounts, even just as a public facade at the very least. At the very least. He's not even like pretending that.
Yeah, it's so weird to think about the fact that his first campaign, he first ran for president trying to get the nomination in 1988. So it's like a lot has changed in just the past few years, and it almost feels like it's obviously just been a day, but it feels like it's like a launch of a 2016 campaign for 2020. Which I feel like there are a lot of lessons that were learned in 2016 that a campaign might not do so hot with that in 2020. However, I don't know. I mean, like that's the thing. I think a lot of the time, like we're always online,
Right.
and sometimes I think that we see what's going on and kind of have a view of the world, but then you poll people who don't really pay any attention to politics or don't pay any attention to news, and you find out that they're just like, no, Biden is great, or Obama was awesome, or
Right.
Whatever the case may be, and it's just like, oh, okay, trying to understand the broader population is just so tricky, and I feel like after 2016, I've kind of learned to not try to guess what people want.
Right.
In that regard, because most people aren't paying attention to politics. Most people aren't paying attention to any of this right now. And even if they are, it's just from being familiar with names, But as much as people are talking about, Biden and Warren and Mayor Pete, it's like I bet the name recognition is still pretty low. On Warren probably has high name recognition, but Biden, being a former vice president, does. But I think a lot of people still aren't paying much attention to any of this.
Right.
And while people like us might dissect every policy idea that gets put out there and think, okay, cool, a policy-driven campaign, this is great, or whatever. Maybe the feel-good pushback on Trump thing will resonate with some people. I don't know.
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Right. It's a bizarre. Yeah, you absolutely hit it on the head. It's a bizarre, like, sort of, because we also don't know, of these people who we're seeing in the polls and on Twitter, who's going to end up even going out to vote when the primaries come around. Like,
yeah,
who knows? Who knows? Maybe that audience that's polling high for Biden, when they get a phone call or a text message or whatever, who knows? maybe they like Biden and they aren't going to end up going to the poll at all, or who knows, or maybe. Well, we do know that the Twitter, the whole Twitter isn't real life thing. I have a I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel about that, because I think it's not fully, obviously it's not you can't just go by Twitter, but I also think you can get
you can't ignore it
right
either.
Exactly right. It's you have to just understand the Twitter sphere and then just place it where it belongs, I guess. You can't give it too much weight.
In the trash.
I gotta say, it always bothers me that, like, one of the social networks that I spent the most time on and grew the most is the one that, like, is garbage, that doesn't that has terrible leadership, that doesn't pay me. Man, if I spent the time early on that I spent on Twitter, on YouTube, who knows how much I'd be making now. I'll tell you, it's more than the zero I'm making from Twitter. So
yeah, one thing I think is interesting is there are a lot of people who I'll sometimes see in my Twitter mentions who are under the impression that I'm very wealthy, which is just not true. It's like I don't make much money on, I have a Patreon, but it's just like I just use it for journaling basically. But like I don't make any money from Twitter. You don't either.
Yeah.
And having a lot of Twitter followers or getting a lot of retweets doesn't pay the bills, which is why I love my job, because it does pay the bills. But Twitter, just so I'm like looking at my phone, I've got that it's this like shaming app basically that what's it called, screen time, where every week it'll be like, hey, here's how long you were on this on your phone. And I spend 9 hours and 15 minutes a day on my cell phone.
Right.
And in the past 7 days, I've used Twitter for 35 hours.
I gotta check this out now. Where's my? I'm very interested now to see. I think you might beat me there. Actually, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't really know where it is. Fuck it.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like it's supposed to kind of like, so the story of how that came about is really interesting. Is that Apple was getting a bunch of pushback from people who were saying, I'm spending too much time on my iPhone. This idea of tech addiction, basically, which is a concept that's kind of disputed, basically. But there was this group, I forgot what they're called, but basically Center for Ethical Design or Ethical Technology or something along those lines. And basically this was like an idea that was put out there that to like give people the information they need to take breaks if they need it, which is why basically it's like parental controls for yourself. Right.
What was your? I found screen time. What was your? You beat me on the overall phone usage time. I'm only 4.5 hours per day. But what's your Twitter time?
Amateur. 35 hours, 56 minutes in the past 7 days.
All right, forget it.
Daily average 5 hours and 8 minutes.
I'm 14.5 hours and daily average two hours. So clearly I need to step up my game. That's why you have probably 100,000 followers more than I do.
I'm at like 180,000.
Oh, even more than that. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, one of the best burns that my dad ever did to me was when I was like, oh, hey, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, people online read your stuff. And I'm like, yeah, on Twitter I have a lot of followers. And it was like, at the time I had like 90 something. He goes, what happens when you get to 100,000? And I was like, nothing. and he was kind of like, why do you do it? It was this idea that I, like.
Yeah, YouTube sends you a plaque if you get 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah, right. Like I want God, what would a Twitter plaque be? Just like, just a mirror so you can look back at yourself and be like, But yeah, and then there was another one where I was So Chrissy Teigen made a video for Twitter that was like, they asked her some questions, and one was like, if your timeline was a party, who would be invited? And she was like, named like a few actual famous people, and then she's like Parker Molloy, and then which I did not know she was going to do, which was kind of weird when I saw it. But I sent it to my dad. I was like, Dad, you've got to check this out, because I'm always trying to be impressed with me, please. And he wrote back. He's like, that's cool. Is she famous or something? And I'm like, God damn it. I was like, yeah, she's pretty famous.
Dads, my dad's probably in the YouTube live chat right now. Actually, he is also very into seeing the stuff that I do, and also doesn't always get it. Much like it sounds like your dad.
Yeah. Well, though my dad's like pretending like he doesn't know about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, though. I'm not buying it. So,
right. Yeah, I don't know who.
It's like,
yeah.
It's like, you know who she is.
Right. I mean, come on,
yeah.
Dad.
Come on.
So let's move on from. I'm sure I'll be talking more about Biden and the primaries. I feel like it's inevitable because I've been talking about it pretty much every show. But let's move on from that, because what I wanted to talk to you about today, Parker, was the Mueller Report. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I had Aaron Matei on the show, who's been a Russiagate skeptic. And I still consider myself somewhat, I guess, a Russiagate skeptic in terms of basically how the media covered it, how certain things were portrayed by certain experts who in reality were always, clear to me, grifters. But I also disagreed with him on a number of things. And when I had him on, I had read his stuff, and I felt like I agreed with him on probably, I think I said at the time, like 95% of the stuff, although the 5% that I didn't, amount-wise, was very substantial, I pointed out. But, as the Mueller reports come out, I do feel like I sort of had the right take on it. But in fact, the more I've taken a look at it, and the more I've read it, and the more I've read smart people's takes on it, who were skeptical and who weren't skeptical, I think the report was very legitimate. I think the report put things out there that clearly show that the Trump campaign was attempting something at the very least. And that, I mean, certainly from what Mueller sounds like he's saying in the report, Trump definitely tried to obstruct the investigation. And, I feel like I'm not trying to summarize it here, but I'm just sort of giving my view on just, as someone who felt like I had the right take the entire time and felt like it was vindicated in the end, but I'm not, patting my back every 2 minutes on Twitter.
Like Michael Tracy.
God. Yeah.
Oh.
But I think you could believe those things, because my thing was always this. The way the social media stuff was being portrayed, while a legit thing to point out, I felt like it was being portrayed as much more relevant than it really was. I think it's certainly a worry for how it could possibly escalate in the future. But what was actually done in 2016 on social media by Russia was fairly benign in terms of its effects on the election. In terms of the email hacks, however, which I've always said from the beginning, I've made sure I pointed out that at this point it was allegedly that they were involved, even though it seemed very likely they were, but I still kept it open that it was possible they weren't. Sure. But then when the indictments came through and I read through them, again, the indictments are also basically saying we are alleging them doing this. But the details in the indictments on how they came about this seemed, as someone who understands this stuff, very legit to me. So the email hacks to me were always a big deal, because clearly they had a actual effect. We can't really put a number on it in terms of how effective they were. What am I saying here? Effective they were. But that's how I looked at it. And then with the collusion stuff, I always said that no matter what Mueller found, whether it was nothing or whether it was something, Trump would always be safe because he would have kept his distance enough to throw anyone, including his own son, under the bus.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I don't think that just in my personal view of any of this, I don't think the collusion aspect of any of this is really like the most important, what everyone was super focused on. Because, it's not about relitigating the 2016 election until the end of time. It's, I think it's the reason that you want to get to the bottom of this and take some action on it or some whatever is just because more or less just that you don't want this to happen in 2020. You don't want it to happen in 2024 or 2028. And it's not necessarily Russia or even any foreign country. It could just be anyone, or anything. My interest in all of this as someone who obsessively consumes media was to look at the effect that media, like, what role did media play in this? And one of my biggest frustrations is that just in general after 2016, it seems like very few of the legacy media outlet type places actually tried to learn anything. There were those. Everyone hired a bunch of like never Trump whatever Republicans to be like, look, we're reaching out, and stuff like that. You had the New York Times hiring Brett Stevens and Barry Weiss, but when you look at the things that the actual coverage itself, everyone's been really resistant to actually trying to look at this and take away messages. And I think that one of the biggest issues with the email leaks is the fact that it wasn't the damage, the actual damage that was inflicted on everything, and on the Clinton campaign, was not it was indirectly Russia, and it was indirectly WikiLeaks. It was directly the places that people got the news about WikiLeaks. It was the fact that this took over every news broadcast, that these stories, whether they were big or small, some were very legitimate and some were not. I mean, during the final 5 weeks of the 2016 campaign, I pulled this up. Evening and primetime cable news aired nearly 250 segments about the DNC and Podesta emails. Broadcast TV news ran 25 segments, and five of the country's top newspapers, the LA Times, New York Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post, published a combined 96 articles on the topic. So it's like there were all these stories that were all based on, petty intra-office politics or, disagreements or John Podesta's risotto recipe, so stuff like that. And there was one, I can't find the author's name, but this one writer at the Week who had this really great take on this that was posted right after the election, which says, if you're in possession of sensitive documents you want to leak and you want to inflict maximal damage on a candidate, the recipe for injuring the campaign is obvious. Don't let the wound close. Keep dripping out emails, knowing perfectly well that all the media will report that a new batch of emails has been leaked, and B, that very few people will actually take the trouble to read them, but will notice that time is not healing the thing, and the bleeding continues cycle after cycle. The damage, however, was extraordinary. WikiLeaks' slow release approach forced journalists to cover each batch as new revelations, even when there wasn't much to actually cover. Having learned through bitter experience that few Americans would bother to actually read them, WikiLeaks sprinkled emails into the news cycles and gave Americans the impression of a campaign wound that wouldn't stop to heal. So while Donald Trump's rapid cycled through scandals that seemed to not stick because they were so quickly replaced by fresh ones, the emails lingered in the public eye. Right. So it's this whole idea that basically the way that these emails were released by WikiLeaks, which is one of my issues with WikiLeaks. It wasn't that they just put all these emails out there; it's that they behind them.
Right.
Julian Assange says that, he's like, oh, I didn't post these for any strategic political move. He absolutely did.
Right.
It's like the first batch was right before the DNC. You had another batch right when, hours after, like an hour after the Access Hollywood tape came out, and then you had another batch that was just the final few weeks of the campaign. So
Right.
it's one of those things where had WikiLeaks just been like, look, we have all this stuff here, it all is. I think that would have been like, oh, okay, yes, sure, that's what you do. You just
Right.
leak things. But the slow release was
It was purposeful.
that's my issue with it. It's that they would release them. They were curated, but they weren't. They didn't take the meaningless stuff out of there. And when they would post these on social media, a lot of the times what would happen is they would take a quote, put it in a tweet,
Right.
and then post that, and the quote would be something horrible, but it might have been someone quoting someone else
Right.
within like there was one example that was posted the first day that they put those out that was something like, the DNC is hiring goons to go to smear Bernie in the press, or something like that. But then when you actually click through the email and follow that chain, it's someone was quoting like Fox News Sunday, and it was Paul Manafort who said that. So
Right.
it was them just writing down what was happening on TV. But when you saw the WikiLeaks tweet, it came off as it was like some secret plan or something like that.
Right.
I don't
Right.
know. That's what frustrates me about the whole thing, because I don't think anyone has learned anything from this.
Well,
And in 2020, you could have that slow release, that never closing wound, the perma scandal.
right. Well, what sort of bothers me about this whole thing too is, and this sort of came up the day I had Aaron Mate on the show was the same day that Julian Assange was pulled out of the embassy the Ecuadorian embassy in London. And we discussed what he was being charged with, and we agreed on that. I think it's bullshit in terms of what is sort of, that's not something you would extradite someone over. In fact, it seems like but also though, where we disagreed was, I mean, it's pretty clear that Julian Assange had a favorite in 2016.
Yeah. Oh.
I think and he disagreed because Julian Assange never specifically said he had a favorite. But I mean, it's pretty clear in terms of also the messages now in the Mueller report where WikiLeaks, Assange himself, I believe, says we prefer a GOP win in this election. So we know that.
And also, I mean, he was sending Twitter DMs with Don Jr.
Right,
So
right.
it's like, come on.
Right,
but yeah.
But here, this is what I think. Actually, I think, and this is my complete speculation, just based on everything I've read, is that Assange actually did not know he was who gave him the shit. I don't think he has any idea who gave him the emails. I think he knew it wasn't Seth Rich and went with that direction disgustingly regardless. But I don't think he knew it was who it was, and I don't think he specifically colluded with Russia in any way other than them giving the WikiLeaks the emails, just like they've received dumps from other people like Chelsea Manning. And I think that's why they have nothing to get him on in terms of, and why they're going back to 2010 and a line where he says he will attempt to help crack a password without any idea if he even really attempted, or I believe they even know he definitely did not have any success. So the question is, did he even attempt? And that's, yeah. So that's why I think that's all like that. I look forward to being wrong, I guess, but that's my belief, just because I think it would be fairly easy at this point with everything they've got to figure out a way to connect him to that. But who knows?
Yeah.
Now, the thing that really gets me, and we could go through some of the. This is well, I seen you get into sort of spats with them online, the specific Russiagate skeptics, and I want to say first and foremost that I do think there's levels of them.
Oh yeah,
I think by far the worst and the one who gives them all a bad name is Michael Tracy.
Michael Tracy.
Yeah, I think he's. And you brought up how his thing is 2016 actually, and I gotta say I disagree with you. I think he's just I think he's just purely coming from an area of just jealousy. He's just green with envy that these people who he perceives as wrong all the time are on TV, and here he is, this independent journalist who thinks he's the only one in the world who got the whole thing right, and he wasn't invited on Maddow. Like his obsession with specific and. It's just so bizarre to me to just and his thing with Sam Cedar was that he had Marcy Wheeler on. He was just so angry that Sam Cedar had Marcy Wheeler on and didn't apologize for having her on because apparently she got it wrong. Well, I mean, people get things wrong all the time. It's not like and I will also say, yes, there are people who are levels of grifting too. Marcy Wheeler, not a grifter. Was she wrong on things? Yes. Malcolm Nance, I think, is a grifter. He was totally wrong on a ton of things. There's a difference between a journalist who was legitimate and the sources that they had just got it wrong, and then people who just bullshit out their ass. And you could be mad at them. But he sort of just conflates it all. He doesn't really, because they're all just the media to him, and they all got it wrong. And him, Michael Tracy, the one and only, got it right. When, as many people, including you, as I've seen your great screenshot compilation, Michael Tracy got the simplest, easiest one wrong, and repeatedly saying that WikiLeaks did not hack the DNC or the Podesta emails. Right.
Or Russia didn't hack it.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks, I should say, WikiLeaks did not hack them. That's 100%. Russia did not hack WikiLeaks or the Podesta emails. I'm saying it wrong again. Russia did not hack the DNC or the Podesta emails. Christ.
Right, that was his argument. And then he, like, that was his argument. And then it became, well, we're learning a lot of good stuff from this, which is fair. You know, it's like, if that's someone's belief, you can believe that it's a good thing that these emails came out. You can believe that and still be like, it's still kind of messed up that someone's trying to put their thumb on the scale of an election by doing this. Because, I mean, think about any time we've gotten any sort of leak of an email from within the Trump campaign. It's like you had, like the Don Jr. like setting up the meeting, kind of like that was the first email within the Trump campaign that leaked, and it was more damaging than anything that was in any of the DNC emails. It was like a legitimate hello, I would like to meet. Yes, in the summer. You know, it's like these scandals were so far beyond what was in the DNC emails, you know, which were usually just, you know, some people had personal preferences. There was the thing with Donna Brazile where she gave the Clinton campaign a heads up on a question, which was very bad. Don't do that. And then when Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down as head of the DNC, then she took the place. Like, that was totally wrong. But imagine, like, I think about this all the time. What on earth was in like the RNC emails as Trump was running for the nomination? Like, what kind of freak out must they have been having then? You know, because I'm sure for a while they thought he was a sideshow, you know. But
for sure, they didn't see Trump coming at all. I mean, neither did the Democrats when you had in those emails that leaked. One of the emails said how Donald Trump we'll treat Donald Trump like a Pied Piper candidate. We're going to actively promote him because he's going to be a piece of cake to beat.
So here's the thing. At the time, I remember while the primary was still going on, I was thinking, if I'm the Democrats, I want Trump to beat Cruz, because I thought that Trump would turn people off. He would get bored. he would do something over the top, or that would cost him support, but that didn't happen. So it's like, I don't think it was necessarily a terrible strategy. And I
Right.
don't think that, it's one of those things, like right now, if Democrats could, if you could choose an opponent that was like, like a Mitt Romney type or something, or like, uh, if you could choose to run against Mitt Romney or David Duke, it'd probably be like, oh, run against David Duke. It's like that.
Right.
That'd be so easy. Which it's a strategy that's worked before, where and you, not in the presidential campaigns, but you've seen, like, in Nevada, there was that lady Sharon Angle, who,
Right.
she was, several years ago. She came out to say, like, she wanted Second Amendment remedies to problems, which
Right.
was kind of, we're like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, oh, and it
Right.
was just like, it's like, that's who Harry Reid wanted to run against, and he got that, and then he won. Same thing you saw in that Delaware Senate race, where you had, was it Mike Castle versus Christine O'Donnell in the Republican primary, and Democrats wanted Christine O'Donnell to win, and she did, and then they beat her. So it's like, I understand the impulse to think that that's a good strategy, but at the same time, when it backfires in a big way.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I
So,
think, I always thought that, it was going to come down to, once they all were in the race by summer of 2015, I thought it was going to come down to Trump and Cruz. And I thought that Trump could win it, but he's going to just not care because he's going to worry about his money. And somehow he's going to make some deal with Cruz to make sure Cruz, where Trump was able to bow out without looking like a loser, on his own terms, granted, and Cruz could possibly be the nominee by that reason. But then that changed quickly when I saw that Trump actually wants to do this. Whether he thinks he's actually going to win the presidency, who knows? But he actually wants to do this. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think people underestimated, just how Americans look up to people like Trump. It's just that I think he is legitimately, when if I was someone who wasn't an American and was just given a ton of pop culture in my lap without knowing anything, I would think, if someone asked me, okay, now think of an American, I would think of Donald Trump. He embodies, like, every cliche, the reality show aspects of our culture, just the performative riches, the performative wealth, just the whole. He's the worst of everything America's about, and that's the stuff I think America's most known for outside of America.
yeah, he's a, he's an he's a stereotype,
Right,
basically.
right.
And also the fact that his character has been, his professional, how the world has seen him is always this, like, professional, successful businessman, even when that wasn't true. Because no one really cared about what Donald Trump was doing in the world.
Right.
When it was like, oh, his hotel closed, no one cared if his hotel closed or,
Right.
casino closed. But but then he would have shows like The Apprentice, where it's like, oh, he's flying around and, puts his name on things, and lives in a gold tower.
Right.
And I remember seeing that show and thinking, this is the tackiest thing I've ever
Oh,
seen.
absolutely right.
And I think my dad watched, like, the first season or something, and I remember, like, kind of seeing it because I was home from school or something at the time, and I was just like, how do you watch this? This is so tacky. Like, this is terrible acting. It's like everything was bad, and he's like, no, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see how the business world works, or something like that, or. There was some sort of quote like that, and I remember thinking, like, this is not how anything works.
Right, right. Yes, right. I mean, Trump is legitimately the president of the United States, and what we're seeing is that's not how anything works either. Like he's actually legitimately like running things, and he's not even doing that.
Uh-oh. I think I lost you. Are you? Oh, hey.
I see you. Okay, cool.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so
Lost you for a sec.
Yeah, well, I'm back. But let's bring up another Russiagate skeptic. We could bring up both of them, Greenwald and Taibbi, because to me they're two people who I actually like a lot, and I have tremendous respect for both of them, and I think they're both great. And I think they're not quite on point here. Taibbi, I think, is much smarter than the comparisons he's using. Now, I haven't read the most recent one, but from the headline, it's Russiagate was journalism QAnon.
Right. Yeah.
I want to read it before I say anything about it, because I want to make sure I'm accurate about what he's saying. I don't know if you've read it.
I have not.
But I highly doubt that anything is like QAnon, first of all.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Pizzagate is like QAnon.
Right, yeah.
Which, hey, speaking of things that came, like that's one thing we have to thank the DNC leaks or the Podesta leaks for. Pizzagate.
Right.
Like that's what happens when you put out so much information, which actually I think that's kind of the argument that's being made by some people, which is that, oh, well, yeah, if you look at this 400-page document, of course you're going to find some stuff that like fits your narrative and you can make it look a certain way. It's like, yeah, that's the whole thing with the emails too. It's like, yeah, if you go looking for weird symbols about pizza, like you're gonna find them. And then if you like if you assign these views to to each of these things, like, well, pasta means this or sauce means that, it's like or people are just talking about pizza, man.
Right.
But but yeah, I definitely see sort of that argument being made, like, well, it's a 400-page report, of course you're gonna find some stuff that you could pull a sentence from here or there, which is what the Attorney General did when he wrote his letter. He pulled a few sentences that made it look like it said something that it didn't.
Oh, it absolutely said. In fact, it quite explicitly said the opposite of what he was saying.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was a smooth move on his part, because once people had that narrative that it was like that everything was over and that everyone owed everyone else an apology, I remember that was immediate. It was like
Right.
the day that Barr put that out, there were already people saying, when's the media going to apologize for this?
Well,
what are you talking about?
I think
for what?
Right. No, I think it's a great point, because I think you can just see by the amount of self-filleting from some of the Russiagate skeptics. I think if you charted that, it was like, up here for the past 3 or 4 weeks, whenever the Mueller report was handed to Barr, and then it sort of took a nosedive after the last Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then from Taibbi, the one I actually did read was, I know what he's saying here, but to compare this with weapons of mass destruction is just, yeah, right. I mean, I get what his point is, but I just don't think it's a particularly good one. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons I sort of I disagree with that premise is that the issue with weapons of mass destruction was that the problem with journalism there was not yes, you had the people writing opinion pieces like really trying to push that, but you're always going to have people writing terrible opinion pieces. That's
right.
That's kind of opinion in general.
People have terrible opinions, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But the issue was the reported pieces that stated things as fact that weren't necessarily fact.
Right.
And I don't think that there were those mistakes. Those things stated as facts. You had a few stories that couldn't be corroborated. And for the most part, people would, most media outlets like took a step back. The Michael Cohen in Prague thing, that was one outlet had that story, and what was it? I don't remember who it was, so I don't want to like
No,
blame them.
that's
But it
fine.
was
Yeah.
like one news service had that story, and they were like, no, we're sticking to it, and no one else could confirm it. So it's like, yeah, that seemed very shady. But pretty much anything else that you see people, you would see reported by the New York Times and the Washington Post and all of this. It was based on actual reporting, and they had legit sources. Getting people inside these meetings in Trump Tower. That's a real story.
Right.
Why did the administration hide it? Why did they lie about it several times? There were all of these things that, even if Russia had nothing to do with anything, why are they telling so many lies in public?
Right.
That kind of came back to the whole, very, very start of this. It was the constant lying that really kind of made me think this is not how innocent people act. And even if nothing else, it's worth investigating that, because if the president is telling the public a lie, that's not like a matter of national security, but like telling a blatant lie about something he did during his campaign, that's worth knowing.
Right.
But with the weapons of mass destruction, it was that you had reporters who were taking information directly from the administration and just putting it out there.
Right.
And that was the breakdown there. It was a reporting failure. It was not sourced well. And I think that for the most part, everything was sourced well. And when mistakes were made, people got in trouble. There were, there were definitely a few times where stories had to be retracted, and
Right.
you saw real consequences for this. There was CNN reported something on Anthony Scaramucci having connections to a Russian bank, and that story ended up not meeting their standards. And one of the people who worked on it was a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He lost his job, like he was out. And then you had at ABC, you had someone who had been at the network for 20 some odd years who reported that Michael Flynn was in contact with Russia during the campaign, and that turned out to be wrong. And that was something that was found out the same day that he was wrong, and he was put on suspension for 6 months, and then he came back and was pretty much he was let go. So I mean, these were career-ending mistakes.
Right.
And so this idea that people were just lying and printing things just for fun just doesn't match with reality, because the people who are reporting these stories, actual reporting, were doing their jobs. And I think that it's a huge slap in the face to the very concept of journalism and a free press to call something a hoax, like this. It's like, it wasn't a hoax. What do people mean when they say, oh no, that's a hoax? It's the hoax was that something in the reporting was not right, or it's no one who was doing investigative reporting was sitting there saying Vladimir Putin's hiding behind every corner. It wasn't like that. You saw there were some stories that had headlines that were overhyped, which I think we all know that when headlines go awry, there can be issues. You see
Right.
that with I think it was last time I was on, we brought up the the Facebook discriminates against conservatives or something headline.
Right.
That stuck, and that shaped the whole narrative that went with them for that whole the whole campaign. So so headlines got away from some people. That's not on the reporters. That's you can take that up with editors, or you can kind of look into what you think the headlines should have been for a story. Same thing with illustrations. People were upset about Time magazine having like, oh, the White House is Russian now or something like that. It's like, it was a dumb illustration. Dude, chill.
Right.
It's like when they put that out, I set the Tetris music behind it because I thought it was funny. Um, and but you had people who pointed to that as like, see, look, the media got it wrong. It's like, dude, the illustrator they hired to do this is not the media.
Right. Well, that's
stuff like that.
That's a great point, because what I think actually is happening here is that I totally agree that the reporting. It's a great point. The reporting for the Russiagate and the reporting for WMDs completely different. Even how it was reported. WMDs were just written and reported as factual. That this is the word. This is absolutely true. Whereas Russiagate, if you actually go through the reported pieces, they were much more reserved, much more, allegedly this, apparently, seemingly, these are words used very specifically in reporting when they're hearing from sources. And of course, they mention this from sources. But what I think actually is going on, just from seeing a lot of their tweets, from the Russiagate skeptics who are so hard on the media about this, and they should be hard on the media about this, but I think they're just taking what they're seeing on MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN. They're seeing the dumb, in which I completely think those networks probably really did screw up a lot of it in terms of how they reported it, because of who they had on the show. A lot of grifters were on those programs, and I think they're thinking of just those people as the media, and lumping in those like reported stories from New York Times, from Washington Post, from even BuzzFeed. I think they're just throwing those all in there when they're distinctly not all the same whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the that's a good point, and that's something that I wrote something after the, let's see, yeah, it was after the Barr memo came out. I wrote something about how I was like, no, news outlets do not owe right-wing media an apology for their coverage of the Russia investigation. That was the headline I went with. And you had that was a big narrative that came out right away. It was Sean Hannity opened his show with like a 19-minute like diatribe about how everyone owes him an apology. And it's like, you gotta chill, man. But if you look at this, one thing that it might actually be kind of the lesson to take away here that I feel like people aren't necessarily landing on, but I've kind of thought more about this is the fact that maybe every news show doesn't need a panel. Maybe I don't need an opinion on something that is factual.
Let me interrupt you. If interrupt you there for a second. Yeah. Unless the panel includes Parker Molloy and Matt Binder, then every show should be a panel show. They should be providing us with a car, and they should be paying us, and we should do the panels. Yeah. But I'm sorry for interrupting you for that ridiculousness. Continue.
But no, it's I think that there is a real argument to be made there that maybe we don't need, I wrote maybe the best thing is for the reputation of news media overall would be fewer opinion segments, fewer panels, and fewer op-eds in general. It's a tough industry, but controversial op-eds and on-air shouting matches drive revenue, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the public's overall understanding of what's happening in the world. Perhaps the best response to bad faith calls for apologies over justifiable coverage is to simply invest in more straight journalism, because that's also cheaper. It's it's cheaper to hire a reporter than to pay Megyn Kelly tens of millions of dollars to defend blackface on TV, and then she gets fired. Right. These personalities, like I think there need to be fewer media personalities. Like Malcolm Nance doesn't need to be on MSNBC all the time. Every day. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want to have someone on specifically for a time that where they really have expertise. Cool. But I don't think you just need to fill we need 3 people to yell at each other about something, and especially when it's something that they don't have the facts on. I think that when people say, when people like Michael Tracy say, well, I was right about this all along. It's like, what do you mean you were right? You mean you predicted what would happen, or what was the case? Because it's not it's like when you would have like someone like Louis Smench would put something out there and people would defend her going, well, she's gotten a lot of things right. And first off, that wasn't even true.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But they would say
not.
that, and it's like the goal isn't to get a lot of things right, it's to get everything right. You're confusing journalism for being able to predict what's going to happen, which is not the same thing. So that's what bugs me about the Michael Tracy thing. He frames this idea that he didn't have any inside information that said that something was false. He had no reason to, he had a hunch, but it wasn't that he reported out, oh, this story was being pushed even though they knew something was wrong, or something like that. If he had a story like that, that would be amazing.
Right.
If he found internal memos from a producer saying push the story, something
Right.
like that. That actually sounds like it would be something like a James O'Keefe type Project Veritas.
Right, absolutely. Even to take that the next step, if you want to just skip his media criticism and say go with what he's saying he predicted in terms of what Trump actually would be found of doing, the Trump campaign would be found of doing. Even Mueller is saying that he could not find anything to absolve Trump of what it seems like he believes Trump did.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, it's so tricky because Mueller says on page 2, it's the second page of the report, it says like we were not looking for collusion because collusion doesn't mean anything. And also goes on to say that like if something says we could not establish it, it doesn't mean we've ruled it out.
Right.
It doesn't mean we've categorically said it's false. So it's like there are a lot of things that people still don't know. And
he specifically mentions too that if he was able to talk to certain people or get certain information he was specifically looking for, then this would have turned out very different. Now, that's not something you usually put in a document where you're trying to say that I believe strongly that what I found is like this. That's it. Like, that's it. That's
also the sad thing here is that I think that the overall message is like, okay, cool. Don't cooperate with investigators, and it will turn out in your favor if you're the president, at least.
This actually reminded me of something just now that really angered me when I was talking with, and it wasn't one of Mate's positions, but he sort of defended it. Someone else who was a Russiagate skeptic, I can't remember who, said this on Twitter, and they were saying how they were taking the no collusion thing from Barr. This is before the Mueller report came out on Thursday. They were taking Barr's summary of the Mueller report, the collusion part of it, as they're 100% believing it. Trump was found of no collusion. That's it. I was right. That's what was going to happen. This whole investigation was silly or whatever. But then the email hacking parts of it, they said how that was something you could not believe from the Mueller report because Mueller's known to lie based on WMDs. Now,
I remember seeing that argument several times and thinking,
how do you even? If you're one of those skeptics who completely believe Mueller is in the pocket of the deep state and the whole thing is bullshit to begin with, he's just out always for the pro government whatever take and what. I would actually say good for you. I think, good for you. But, to say that the part I want to be, that I basically what you're saying is the part I said was right, I'm going to believe is right. And the part I was wrong about, I'm going to say Mueller's a liar about just that part.
Yeah. Or there's no proof. That was another thing. There's no proof of this. It's like, okay, but what's your proof of the other part? Well, it's because he said it. And it's like, well, he said both things. Like, why is this a standard of proof for one thing but not the other? And I don't know. That I think that's what bothers me the most about all of this. The touchdown dance kind of stuff that the skeptics are doing here is that they're not treating it like journalism. They're treating it like a contest. And I've seen people say things like, well, hey, you know, this clearly wasn't done to help anyone's career, because it doesn't make sense to take a side outside of what the mainstream believes. It's like, are you kidding? And that always makes sense. Everyone being a contrarian is like the quickest way to end up on TV.
Right.
To be the one willing to take a position that just conflicts with what the world says. When Brett Stevens won a Pulitzer, which is still mind blowing, it specifically says that they appreciate his contrarian takes, and it's one of those things where all those arguments were such a joke, because it's just like, no, Michael Tracy is better off because he's going against the grain, in the face of facts, you know. And I mean, you'll always see, Fox always has people on too, you know, the liberal who will stand against liberals, the person of color who will stand against people of color, the trans person who thinks that trans people shouldn't have rights. You know, someone said to me, everyone loves an apostate, and it's very true. You know, and when it comes to being in the media, it's everyone, like, you know, it's when Turning Point USA hired Candace Owens, it was because it was right after they had to fire a guy for saying that he hates black people. Like that. Remember, there was that reporting.
Yes, I remember.
And so they hired her to say the same messages, but it's just like, well, you can't call her racist,
right?
You know, it's that
what they weren't
true strategy.
What they weren't ready for, though, was for her to defend Hitler.
Defend Hitler. That was
because I think
amazing.
I think then you can actually end up calling Candace Owens a racist. I think.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, it's
a bigot of some sort for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Trump Tower thing. I think just looking at that, how anyone can see that and just not see the take as, and this is where you can, even if you're a weirdo with a Mueller time shirt, which throw those in the garbage with Michael Tracy. I mean, those people are just as bad, I think.
Oh yeah. I thought that if you take Michael Tracy and you take Seth Abramson and you combine them together, you get like a normal person who has reasonable beliefs about things. But at their extremes, they're both a bit much, right, writing their 400 tweet threads and, you know, and going on Tucker Carlson, right, respectively.
I actually don't even. I think it's completely legit to go. I know this is, you know, yeah. I know, but I think it's legit to go on Fox News. My issue is that, you know, if you go on Fox News and are just there to agree with the host, then I mean
it's one thing to challenge them. Yeah. It's another to nod
and
say, yes, I agree.
Right.
My side is bad.
Right.
Just like, come on, man.
Just show up. Just go on and wave a little white flag for 2 minutes, and then there you go. We've already got everything we need.
I kind of hope that Michael Tracy gets that like contributor like slot, because it's like he should at least be getting paid for going on and doing that, because, and that's what's always funny. It's like I haven't been on TV, like actual TV, in you know, no offense to the YouTube stream right now.
Oh no,
but I haven't been on like actual TV until or since like 2014 or something like that, when I was on Chris Hayes' show once.
Listen, I think very little of myself. I'm very self-deprecating, so by all means, shit on me and my YouTube channel as much as you like. I would agree with you. But let's you spend a lot of time on me. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know it's, you know how these things go. But, you know, I just wanted to say two quick things. The Trump Tower thing to me is so crazy that anyone would have any reaction now that we know the full details of that, as written in the Mueller report. To me, the reaction should be from everybody who considers themselves left of center at the very least, is if that was literally anybody else other than the president's son and the president's son-in-law, there would be a case. Whether or not they think they could actually convict, they wouldn't give a shit. They would put that person or persons through hell just during the trial. I mean, it's the equivalent to nobody going down in the financial crisis. I don't give a shit if none of those people went to jail. The thing that pisses me off is that no one even tried. No one gave them the hell of those months to years, shaking in their boots, spending all the money on lawyers to make sure they didn't go to jail. Everyone just said, we can't do this. They're very powerful. Or, we can't do this. They're too stupid to realize they were doing something illegal. No average American, and even, I would say, even Americans making six figures would be considered powerful or wealthy enough to even get that pass. Certainly not people of color for low-level, ridiculous offenses that we shouldn't be wasting time on, the court's time on, let alone, like, it just baffles the mind. And if you want to, for anyone who holds Mueller up on a pedestal after that, you should be fucking angry as hell at the guy for thinking that was an okay take, that Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner are too stupid to do something illegal. You get pulled over for a traffic violation and you tell the cop, officer, I didn't know the law, the rule there. They would write up that ticket anyway. They don't give a shit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's, just the whole, and the fact that when people downplay it as they go, oh, it's process crimes. It's just a process crime. It's like, what? Like, you're the same people who, you'd lock up someone for, what was it? There was that woman who was on probation and voted because she thought she could. She didn't know she wasn't allowed to. Voted and got something like 8 years in prison or something along those lines, where it was like total accident and she really didn't know. But then you have someone who's just like, well, yeah, it was just a financial crime though, so no one got hurt. It's like,
right.
I don't know. It's the goalposts are always moving, and that's what bothers me about so much of this stuff. You look at how you look at how anything is covered in the news media, and it's always, there's no one standard, and you can always see it coming from a mile away. I like to kind of joke that when it comes to watching Fox, it's less like actually watching TV for me now, because I watch so much of it. It's like staring into the Matrix, and it's just like, oh, I can see what's coming a half hour from now. I know that, like, you recognize the patterns, and and you just how goalposts will move. When when the Mueller report came out and said that there wasn't, Trump was not exonerated when it came to obstruction, people go, oh, well, see, they shifted into obstruction. It started as collusion. That's another weird argument, because right from the start, it was about obstruction from the start. That was kind of the whole thing with Comey being fired. That's what they were investigating.
Right.
It's like that was part of why they needed a special prosecutor. So this idea that it was just a shift into obstruction because they were looking for anything, it was ridiculous. And it was this whole it was just a way of changing reality and changing people's perceptions of reality, which, I mean, if you want to get like really deep, you can argue that reality is what the collective, society thinks. So I don't know. I just wish that there was some consistency in anything. And I hate when I see it on the left. I hate when I see it on the right. Just be totally like, just honest. I can look at something and say, oh yeah, I thought that was terrible reporting. I can look at a headline I wrote and go, oh yeah, I can see how that might be misleading now.
Right.
I used to work at Upworthy, so it's something where it's like, I work there post like clickbait days, but it's still one of those things where it's like you really understand bad headlines when you're
Right.
when you've worked there,
Right. I do.
which kind of is why I feel this like need to like almost like atone for this damage that I have brought on the world.
Well, you haven't done this damage, but you made me think of it. The one thing I do agree that the media really sort of messed up from very early on, actually, with this whole thing, is I do think that with the reporting, with everything we just said before included, I do think it's sort of, I don't know if there was any way around this. I mean, certainly there was, at least from the cable news perspective, but I don't know what New York Times or Washington Post could have done. Maybe certain wording of things. But I do think one of the things I do agree with Taibbi and Greenwald about, there's a lot with those two specifically I agree with, but one of the things I agree with their media criticism is that I do think there was this, and I still see it, and it really disgusts me, actually, this sort of fomenting of Russophobia, this xenophobia against Russians. It really bothered me. And I actually hate, I try to figure out, I try not to use, when I'm talking about this, saying Russians. I try to say Russia, because to me it sounds like I'm talking about the state and not individuals of, like, citizens of Russia. And I've seen some bizarre things online, like people's minds have become mush. Like, you hear something, I heard someone speaking Russian on the plane. I'm wonder if something weird, just weird stuff, and it's just, I guess, sort of disappointing to see from liberals. Bringing up again how you brought up, how you just mentioned too, on both sides we have this whole sort of honesty issue. I think this sort of goes into that, where it's like, if you were saying, if someone on the right was saying that about anyone else, you'd be like, whoa, hold on here. Here you are throwing a whole a whole country into one because of their shitty ass government. And you know what? Who's hurting more? Who's hurting more by their government than those people you're maligning as speaking Russian? I mean,
right. Well, yeah. I just, and on that sort of topic, it's I think that one of the big issues then also, which I think that this is something that I feel like the Russiagate skeptics kind of have a trap they kind of fell into, was this idea that everyone was lighting their hair on fire and screaming about Putin hiding under every rock and behind every corner, something like that, and being those people that you're describing, and that's something, and then they take that and then they say, this is what everyone is like who thinks that this is a thing. And it's obviously an unfair generalization. And I think that you see that sort of, one thing the internet makes it a lot easier to do is to find the people who are really out there in any group, right, and then to hit the entire group with that. It's like, as a trans person, it's like that happens constantly. Someone will find some, like, they'll be like, look at this person on Tumblr who said that they are 400 genders at once, and like, it'll be something that's just like really like over the top, or really odd, or it could just be someone trolling, but then they go, this is what all trans people are like. And you see that happen a lot. And I think that it's good to take a step back, and that's what I hope that the Michael Tracy's of the world can take a step back and realize that not everyone is Seth Abramson, and most people who are giving him a hard time, just give him a hard time. And it's not for some love of the narrative or something like that. It's because he's Michael Tracy.
Last question, really quick. Where does Parker Molloy land on impeachment?
I think the best thing for the country, people have these ideas, is to hold, to investigate. And that's something that I think that the House should do. I don't think the Senate's going to investigate any further, but I think that it's worth digging in there. As you sort of said that, Mueller knew that he could, because he wasn't able to talk to certain people. He wasn't able to reach certain conclusions. And I think that's, find those people, talk to them. And I think it's just important to know what the truth is. Is Donald Trump going to get removed from office? Absolutely not.
Right.
He is 100% going to serve until at least January 2021. But,
God,
it does.
Can you imagine extending? Oh my God! Yeah, right.
It's going to be rough. But yeah, you have I think it might be a good strategy for Democrats to drag this out through to the election. The last thing you want to do is, rush this impeachment process, vote, be like, cool, we impeached him, and then then you can't really keep it. You've made your decision. You don't need to keep investigating.
Right.
You don't need to keep holding hearings because you've already completed this. It's like they would be, I think, foolish to rush into that, which I think is why there's some caution.
Right.
Just from a strategy point of view, it would seem to make sense to take it slow, take it painfully.
Right.
Keep that wound open, as I was referencing earlier.
Right. I completely agree strategy-wise. I mean, just the visualization of Trump's reaction throughout the election season, if he's undergoing, the impeachment process, would be, it's just a genius strategy. He would be distracted so much. He would be all he could. It would just be a really good strategy. And, my concern about that was always the Democratic candidates making it all about Russia and Trump. Yeah. And I think
they've done a good job of staying away from that. Mostly.
Absolutely, yes. I've been very impressed with all of them for barely spending any time. My worry now, and I guess we'll have to wait and see, is now that Biden's jumped in, he's going to probably want to make it all about that. But maybe I'm going to regret saying, oh yeah, the Democratic candidate's been really good about it. I mean, and Biden's going to completely tilt it himself, just tilt that percentage all by himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. And I hope. I would be, I just want to whittle it down to Bernie, Elizabeth Warren. I know Kamala Harris is going all the way probably to whenever. Let's just whittle it down to those 2, 3, maybe a fourth. I don't know. But let's just get rid of all the bullshit. I mean, it's just...
I don't understand why anyone would run for president if they don't. First off, I don't understand why anyone would want to be president. But beyond that, I don't understand why anyone would run for president knowing that they're not going to, knowing that they have no shot.
I get it if you're like an Andrew Yang or even a Tulsi Gabbard, where you're bringing something so different or unique, but not in the nice way that word is usually used. But I get that it's putting yourself out there on a national level. What I'm wondering is, what the hell does Tim Ryan, Eric Swalwell, whatever the hell his name is, Seth Moulton, what are you even bringing? What are you even setting yourself apart at? The joke is literally that all of you melt into one anonymous human being. What are you even? I don't get it at all. I
guess it's maybe a way to raise your profile a tiny bit, but
I don't think those I totally think that's legit if you are someone who's bringing something that's different. And I think whatever happens, I'm sure Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard and I don't know what's another I can't even think right now, another low level candidate. Well, look how it's worked out for Pete Buttigieg. God, I hope that guy gets out, but he's just I thought, listen, I gotta say, if anyone could make my opinion of Beto O'Rourke go up a notch. But I'll leave that there. Parker Molloy, thank you so much for joining me today. Always a pleasure. And I look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. Take care,
Thanks.
Parker.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Hold on, I'm just going to hang up the Skype here. So some of you have noticed, I see in the chat, that Sabu is now, my cat has come over and is biting my feet. So some of you have noticed that Super Chat has been turned on for the YouTube live stream. Now, folks, I would like to announce to all of you right here, right now, that I have officially been monetized by YouTube. I am an official YouTube partner now. There's a lot of YouTube partners. It's not that rare of a thing, but it is actually pretty difficult nowadays to be just get YouTube to activate you. So I'm glad that process is over. My channel is monetized. I'm not making much because there's still a growing channel. Oh my God, my cat is literally gnawing on my feet. Ow. But anyway, so my videos are monetized, and my live streams are monetized, and there's super chat turned on, meaning if you would like to throw me a bone by shooting me over a super chat, which means you can highlight your comment of choice for the chat room for a whatever sort of donation you want to give. You can do that now. Sounds like fun, right? Anyway, folks, patreon.com/MattBinder. You can support the show right there. $5 a month is the asking price, but if you want to give a little bit less or a lot bit more, I would appreciate that as well. I've been talking to patrons. Well, not talking, but I requested patrons send in some sort of, I guess, sort of a, not so much a survey, but what they would like to see from the show, whether they like the long form stuff, whether they want shorter stuff, more shorter stuff, or they like the one or two big long form stuffs, I just said. Today was, I don't know if I said this on air, I was talking to Parker before this, before we went on about it, but today was Bring Your Kid to Work Day, and I brought Ezra to work, and he was fantastic. He was really good. And this cat is gonna literally... So I brought Ezra to work, and he was great there. He really enjoyed it. He was well behaved, and it was so much fun. But, you know, work is tiring. Having a child is tiring. And combining the two together somehow, not somehow, obviously, is like double tiring. I'm exhausted today. I'm actually not shocked I got through that interview because it was with Parker, and Parker is absolutely fantastic. But I thought the second it ended, I thought I would fall down in front of you all and fall asleep. You would just see me live stream sleeping on air. But I think I'll make it through a little bit of a members bonus here. I'll give you guys like 20 minutes to read through some comments. So patreon.com/MattBinder. And here are the wonderful people. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like I said last time, the Patreon growth hasn't been so much. A lot of it on me. I'm a terrible self-promoter, as all you know. But if you can help here, that'd be great. You know, if I met like 50 some odd Patreon subscribers now, if I could get to like 100, I feel like I could easily. I'll probably do it before that, just like I never hold anything, and maybe that's why I'm also bad at raising funds. But 100 subscribers for sure, I think I'd be able to start knocking out more stuff. But again, I'll probably end up doing that beforehand, especially being that I saw a lot of good reaction from patrons about doing some shorter form content, just like, you know, quick hits for YouTube. Maybe not even to even give for the actual podcast. We'll figure it out. We'll figure that all out. So let's go to the patron page here so I could shout out my wonderful patrons. Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Amanda G, Andrew C, Andrew H, Appeal to Reason. Oh, wait a minute. My bad. 1 second. I gotta just read the active patrons. Benji A, Bobby M, Brooke H, Champagne Communist, G, Christine H, Colin R, Dank Uger, Dave K, David Z, Dragon Slayer, Dum Floaties, Fraz K, Francis Zek, FTW all day, Greg Durant, Greg D, Ian J, Jameson Test, Janelle A, Jasmine H, Jeff K, Jonathan B, Jordan V, Joseph R, Josh C, Katie S, Kyle, Max W, User Me, Michael J, Michael M, Mr. Danks, Nicole A, Namde Net, Omid M, Romina O, Cena, Struggle Session, TM, Tamney G, Thaddeus A, Tina M, Tom G, Tom M, Trine E, Will P, and Zarin. And again, guys, in the Discord and on the Patreon subscriber area, I have asked you guys to give a little bit of your feelings about how you'd like to see the show go, and definitely give me your thoughts, please, by all means. I would love to hear what you guys like to see, and then I will do what I can to make it happen. And I do think actually the news quick hits, like, short YouTube videos going over, things that happened the day in news, just one topic, 2-3 minute breakdown of it, commentary on it. I think that'll be a almost 100% assured thing coming. All right. YouTube.com/Matt Binder brings you to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now that it's monetized, I'm going to be spending a lot more time building this YouTube channel. There's an incentive here now. I know there's a lot more subscribers on the podcast. I can see the stats. If you're a podcast subscriber, jump over to YouTube, subscribe if you can. Still, if you want, I'm still going to be putting the podcast up. But let's build this YouTube channel. It's just a more easily digestible way for people to sort of consume this sort of stuff. Even if you're one of those podcast lovers who listens to it in the car or whatever, I know you're there. So that's why I'm going to keep giving you the podcast. But there's a whole just dynamic where it's just easier to share YouTube videos than it is to share podcasts. People will watch a 2-3 minute clip if they're interested and want to know more about a channel or a show. It's a lot harder to convince them to jump in for a 1 to 1.5 hour broadcast. It's just how it is, All right, guys. All right, because it's the first time, and doomedpod.com, subscribe on iTunes, leave an iTunes review. It's been really long since we got an iTunes review, actually. So someone, please give me an iTunes review. Because it's the first time with the Super Chats, I'm going to read the Super Chats. Renee, with the Super Chat. Congratulations, Zabrowi Tavarik. Check it out. Check it out, Kennedy Crouch, said Renee. Monetization. Renee, as Doom's very own version of Majority Report's Jimmy Reefer Cake, has the historic, I don't know what to call it, the honor of saying he's the first ever to give this channel a Super Chat donation. Renee, that click with my teeth and tongue was for you. There you go, buddy. Thank you, Renee. I really appreciate it. The other Super Chats are right here. 1 second. Ayahuasca communist. Just looks like nothing but the Super Chat. No commentary with the Super Chat. Just boom, gave me a Super Chat. Thank you, Ayahuasca. 2 of them. I appreciate that. Boom, 2.99 donations. It looks like. Thanks. I really appreciate it. And then Dank, with the $5. Shout out to Sabu, cat emoji. There should be a table emoji for the wrestler Sabu. Oh, that's Dank Uger, my buddy here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Folks, going to the members portion, we'll go about 20-30 minutes. Watch, I'll end up with another over hour members, even though that's not how long the members half should be. But see you all next time on Doomed. And now that the monetization of the YouTube channel comes in, I guess I'm going to have to now I feel like I'm going to be forced to actually go out and get that interstitial song, just so you all know that the show is not over and we're going to the second half, and I could actually give myself a little break as I step away and grab another soda, or throw the cat in the bathroom and lock him in there. Yeah, so let's go through some comments. But first, actually, let's, the Biden thing. God. Joe Biden, I get why he thinks he's obviously is the front runner. I mean, the polls show him as the front runner. I just don't think it's going to last. Is he an actual threat? I do think so. I'm not someone who's like out there saying, oh, Joe Biden will never be the nominee. I think he could very well be the nominee, but I also think it's very possible this front-running lead just doesn't last. He'll certainly be in there for a while, I think. My question is, how long will the bundlers and the establishment split their choice between Kamala and Booker and Biden? I mean, there's going to be a point where it's got to give, and they just all get behind one, and the other two are just forced to just drop out. I don't know who it's going to be, though. I mean, Booker is just, for sure, he's peace, Booker. Shocking how quickly he's fallen. It's like him and Gillibrand are polling so low, it's shocking to me. The fact that Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke are above those two, that's something I didn't see coming. But I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see from... I just can't... It is a weird one, This is going to be a really weird primary. It's just not going to be something that we've ever seen before. It's going to even, I think, be crazier than the Republican one. Because it's not all fringe candidates and people who are out there. These are all, whether you like them or not, I don't like a lot of them, but they're all legitimate candidates with a base somewhere in the Democratic Party. So, we'll see. I don't know. We will see. All right, let's go to some comments here. Oh, another thing I want to bring up here. These weird attacks from Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, on Bernie Sanders. He's being so open about it. I mean, listen, I actually don't have a problem with people going negative. I know Bernie doesn't like it and other candidates don't like it, and that's the thing. I think if you have a legitimate gripe with policy, if it's a personal negative, I'm not into that. But if you have a legitimate gripe with policy or what someone's pushing, you blade in there. You pull out, bring the receipts. Sip that tea. But for real, I mean, so I don't have a problem with that. But it is weird to see Mayor Pete going after Bernie, saying he doesn't see first of all, he said he's this bizarre thing that you really only see from donut Twitter and idiots online who really don't know much about politics, saying Bernie and Trump are two sides of the same coin. I mean, first of all, that requires you to believe that Trump is actually the anti-establishment candidate. Not even believe. That requires you to cede to Trump that he is the anti-establishment candidate, that he is actually a populist, that he actually cares about the working class. You are an idiot if you do that. You are. Because it's demonstrably untrue. The idea that Bernie and Trump are the same means that you've fallen for Trump's whole facade. Hook, line, and sinker. You don't even have to like Bernie to realize how dumb of a political analysis that is. And then back to solely Buttigieg saying he doesn't see a coalition coming around Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry. What coalition is that? What coalition don't you see coming around Bernie Sanders? There's a large coalition around Bernie Sanders. Most grassroots activists, progressive grassroots activists, are with Bernie Sanders. A number of the most important organizations, left-wing progressive organizations, Democracy for America, Move On, not specifically with Bernie, but Indivisible has been very supportive of pretty much all the Bernie-aligned candidates. And Indivisible is sort of more of a liberal friendly, a more liberal friendly organization, even though if you look into the people who run the show there, they're actually pretty progressive. They endorse Cynthia Nixon over to Andrew Cuomo. They endorse pretty much the whole lineup of the freshman House members who specifically have either A, said that Bernie inspired them to run, or B, fully supported and run on all of the things Bernie pushed in 2016. So I don't know what coalition this guy's talking of. What, the big money coalition? I mean, that's clearly what the DNC, the DCC, the inter-party funders. I mean, that's the coalition he's talking about, right? Especially now that we know from that New York Times article that Mayor Pete is actually the one guy who is running for president in the Democratic primary, who is actively part of this group, this Dem Insider group that's specifically out to curtail and end Bernie's presidential run as quickly as possible. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. But I think you could throw Mayor Pete's political analysis out the window because it's bullshit. And the guy isn't that smart. I'm sorry. The guy isn't that smart. You don't graduate from Harvard and join the army. I'm sorry. Join the military. Sounds pretty dumb to me. And that's just one. That's just me. A jokey reason from me. Sort of joking. Yeah. I think actually the guy is not very bright. I don't think just because you could speak a lot of languages doesn't mean you're smart. You could be book smart, but an idiot. I mean, let's go to the comments here. Renee and my dad socializing before the show starts and the YouTube live stream. I'll leave that to them. Although, what is this? My dad said, Renee says, I wonder how you punished Matt. You told him to stop reading? My dad says, I made him listen to Reagan speeches. That was a good one. Dad. Manny, I'm finally catching the live stream. And at the beginning, too. Well, pleasure to see you, Manny. It's a pleasure to see a lot of names that I don't usually see in the chat. Choking on Ashes, welcome. Glad to see you here. Okay, Grimlock in the house. Ayahuasca. Ayahuasca's a regular. Brian Aguelo, a regular as well. Brian points out that Biden said the same wimpy stuff he said about the Lucy Flores story. Sorry you felt that way, right? About the sniffing her hair and touching her. Yeah, right. Same thing with Anita Hill. Right. Daniel points out, right, McConnell and the Republicans are the problem. They're enabling Trump. Biden is out of touch. Absolutely. Renee was really pushing to everybody, hinting to everyone that That, hey, look, I got monetization turned on the channel. I appreciate that, Renee. Truly, actually, I really do. Thank you. Renee says, Biden/Tulsi is my nightmares as the mainstream. Well, that's not ever happening. Krim says, I loathe Tulsi. Dank says, Binder should become an Instagram influencer. Throw the show out the window. Listen, whatever takes off, that's what I'm doing. That reminds me, I recently started, I just signed up for Restream. I didn't set it up yet. Basically, for those of you who aren't familiar, Restream allows me to do the show like I'm doing right now, but it simultaneously broadcasts to Facebook, Twitch, all the major channels. I don't believe it allows you to do it to Instagram yet, but that's because Instagram hasn't turned that on in their API. I'm going to test it out because I would like to obviously have this show on everywhere while I'm doing this, because that would actually, I think it'd actually be helpful on Twitch too. I think there's an audience on Twitch for this show, but I'm not going to start anew on Twitch right now where the Patreon is and while I'm building YouTube. But if I get this simulcast going, absolutely I'll run the Twitch show at the same time. So I'm going to do a test of that soon. I'll let you guys know. We'll do like a mini call-in or a mini member show. It'll be fun. And I'll test that out while we do that. Maybe a weekend night or something like that. Maybe I'll do a Game of Thrones thing. That'd be fun. I'll jump on and talk Game of Thrones with you guys. For you Game of Thrones watchers. There's only a few episodes left. Maybe I'll do a wrap-up of the first 2 episodes, and then these juicy 4 ones coming up. I think these 4 ones are going to be really great. Maybe I'll do one for each of those. How does that sound? Let me know. And I'll use that to test the restream thing. It'll be fun. Maybe it'll be fun. You guys let me know if it'll be fun. Everyone was too scared to look at the screen time app when me and Parker were comparing our screen time use. Yeah, well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. When Kennedy gets it right. Never stop posting, right? Just never stop. I will. You can pry my phone and my tweets from my cold, dead hands. How about that? All right? All right? Renee, no, I'm not going to read that one, Renee. Brian says a Twitter plaque would be a drill tweet talking about what you would get. Yeah, listen, YouTube sends a plaque when you hit milestones. I think that's pretty cool. Why does no other social network do that? It's the least you can do. I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, bring your kid to work day. I just yawned on stream. I'm out of it. What was Grim talking about here? He can't find the time to look up what metadata is. Did he not remember the Snowden leaks? Ayahuasca brings up, thanks to MSNBC, the doomsday clock is ticking faster, Matt. LOL, JK, that's a bunch of malarkey. Right, I don't get that at all. That's like conspiratorial bullshit. I mean, the doomsday clock. That's such a... Come on. Doomsday clock. I can't believe some Russiagate skeptics actually brought that up as a legitimate reason as to why the Russiagate hubbub was such a danger, so harmful. No, come on. The doomsday clock. Brian says Warren is on board with impeachment as well. Right, I think it's fine to be for it right now. I really do. After the Mueller report, I was never not sold on it if the Mueller report provided enough evidence, and I think the evidence is there now. I don't think it's going to take down Trump. I actually don't think there's enough to actually take down Trump. I think, without a doubt, like I said, that his son and son-in-law should. That disgusts me that they're getting away with that shit. Might not be able to draw the line to Trump directly, but there's a direct line right there, and they're getting away with it. That's ridiculous. But yeah, as a strategy, just to mess with the guy as you're running election seasons, absolutely. Republicans would do it all the same. Absolutely. Ayahuasca says they could have, talking about WikiLeaks, they could have waited until after the election to release them, but they didn't give a fuck about the harm Trump would cause real American people. I think it was legitimate to leak them before the election, obviously. They received them, they got them, they should release them. But I agree with Parker that how they released them, specifically the slow drip, was very deliberate, and it was a reason that wasn't strictly for journalistic purposes. Grimm says WikiLeaks should cut Assange loose and lose the albatross around their necks. Yeah, but Assange is WikiLeaks. I mean, there really isn't much. There's nothing without Assange. It's like, I don't know, what's an example for you guys? It's like if Cenk was booted from the Young Turks. I mean, could that even happen? There'd be no Young Turks. Although, perhaps Michael, Jamie, Matt, and Brendan overtake the Majority Report, boot Sam Cedar, hire me back on board, and the five of us do the show. And then we'll slowly kick Michael out as well. And it'll be the Matt, Jamie show. Brendan too. Mud says Tracy wants to be relevant. Right. I mean, that's really what it is. Dank says he's desperate for attention. Look back at the Maxine Water thing. Right. And Grimm reminds me once again that Tracy was not along with Defend J20. Right. I mean, Tracy is not being, it's just, he's not being truthful when he pretends that what he's saying is anything but an envious position. And I think it's fine to be that way. I mean, if you think the media is so wrong and you are so right and they're not booking you, I think it's fair to bring that up. Why are you ignoring me? I'm literally... But it's not really what this is about. I mean, he just wants the attention. It's not like he cares to get on TV and correct the record for everybody. He just wants to rub it in their faces. He doesn't want to do a service. You can get that from just reading him. I mean, it's quite clear. Mud says, Trump is the guy you think wouldn't win but proves you wrong about America. I gotta say, actually, he proved me right about America. Not surprising at all to me. I'm not gonna, like I said, I thought it was gonna come down to Cruz, Trump. And then they would have worked out something, so Cruz took it just because Trump wouldn't have. I was obviously more on the mark than most, but I was still off the mark. But it was not surprising to me that America would elect Trump. I mean, you have to be a real pessimist like me, though. really waded into some far right bullshit for years. And while you're wasting your time bringing that to light, just see the rest of everybody else just sharing reality TV show memes, and then you're just like, fuck, Trump is perfect for this country. I mean, I really do think I do truly think that America as a whole got a president that they deserved. One that truly reflects how horrible we've become, and not even become, always have been. And I don't know why I said we've become, because my argument's always been my argument has consistently been that we've always been like this. So I want to continue on that and not just let the wrong words slip out of my mouth, because that's incorrect. Trump has always been the type of candidate that we were headed towards. If it wasn't Trump, it would have been someone else. And if we don't get it right next time, then whoever comes after the guy who comes after Trump, we'll just repeat the cycle. We'll just get another Trump, or someone even worse than Trump, and it'll just go on and on and on and on. There needs to be a complete upheaval of everything that we're experiencing. I mean, it sounds cliche to say, but the system needs to be changed. It's not working for just so many people. And so many people are not politically inclined or politically active or have the time to be, even if they do want to be. It's not even calling them dumb. It's just the point. I would say 99% of them are probably smart enough. Oh, that's probably being too generous. But a good portion of them are without a doubt smart enough to even get it too. It's just, a lot of people just got to take care of their family, feed their kids, and they're not getting paid to do this. So it's not their hobby either. So they fall for it. And I'm not giving them a pass. I'm just explaining the reality of it. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, listen, Bernie Sanders won't be that upheaval. Won't be that complete change. But he'll be a step in the right direction. And other than Elizabeth Warren, he'll still be a step in the right direction, but a slightly a smaller step. I don't see any other candidates being that step in the right direction. I think it'll maybe a step backwards to the Obama days, which you can like Obama. I think he's a good guy with some flaws, some legitimate, real, big flaws. Still, argument to be made, and I will make this argument, one of the best presidents, top 5, top 10, definitely in the top 10, maybe top 5 even, presidents of all time. I mean, and that's because the bar to me is so low for president. I mean, who's at top? Lincoln? FDR? This isn't in order, by the way. If it is, I'd probably put FDR up top. But FDR, Lincoln, LBJ, and again, all three of those guys, I'm just off the top of my head, massive flaws as well. That's how low the bar is. So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. All right. Oh, guys, I'm powering through this right now because I love you all. Because this show is not possible without you guys. So you deserve this bonus stuff. But I'm about to wrap it up. Because like I said, I'll give you 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm already seeing I'm going beyond that. But I'm wrapping it up in the next 5 to 10 minutes without a doubt. Renee says Matt Taibbi got it wrong there. There's a lot of hints of treason in Trump. Read Trump. Just not smoking gun that can overcome censorship and corruption. Mudmud says, Pizzagate and QAnon, just where those things originated from, should be crazy talk. But America proves me wrong again. Renee says, and I agree with this very much, Renee, no prizes for being a Russia skeptic if you're on the anti-fascist, anti-establishmentarian left. El Cid, something that seemed very, very weird to me was the vehemence with which many Russiagate skeptics made grand pronouncements based entirely on the Barr summary and before any version released. Right. Ayahuasca, at least Tybee wrote a concise article to make his point and not just had a public delusional episode on Twitter like Tracy. Right. And again, I want to really drive home here, and I think I did it in the first half of the show. They're not all equal. I think Greenwald and Taibbi are great, and I think they got some things wrong. And I think some of their reactions to the people who also got it wrong on the other side have been a little bit over the top and not something I agree with in full. However, their overall body of work, even on this issue, is great. Even with some of the Twitter annoyance stuff aside. I would even throw Aaron Mate in that grouping. Although, to a slightly, I'm not saying he's on the same footing as Greenwald and Taibbi, but in terms of Russiagate skeptics who got things wrong and still, however, were fairly careful about it. Tracy, on the other hand, and also more nuanced about it as well. A little bit more journalistic ethics there in terms of just how they frame things as well. Tracy, on the other hand, is honestly like the conspiratorial people on Twitter. It's, I don't know, what is it about other than the fact that he wants the attention? Elsid says there was motivated reasoning both on the Mueller will march Trump out of the White House in handcuffs crowd, as well as this whole thing was 100% a fraud by neocon Dems crowd. Impeachment, this is still Elsid. Impeachment, i.e. the House trial, may still very well happen. No, of course the neo-Confederate Republicans won't convict, but then they're Jim Crow robber baron Taliban angelical villains anyway. Francis Zek says, we all owe Jimmy Dore a huge apology for having it right the whole time. Hashtag Sam killed Seth. Hashtag DNC operative Sam Cedar. Elsid says, I don't think anyone can answer how much Trump was or is beholden to such as Putin oligarchs until they pull out the records of all of his shitty money laundering / fraud schemes. Right. If there's anything there, it's in that. To be honest with you. I mean, yeah. Not so much the electoral stuff. Although I think it's for sure there for his underlings, including his son and son-in-law. But that is what it is. Grim says, I mainly watch Democracy Now!, The Real News Network, also Majority Report, Doomed, and sometimes TYT. Thank you, Grim. Francis says, glad Parker's back on Doomed. Heart emoji, and with a good take. Yeah, Parker's great. Big fan of Parker. Love having her on for sure. Absolutely. Just reading these comments to myself now about, I don't know if we want to also do what Michael Tracy wanted, but no, I'm just joking about it. I'm not even going to go there. All right. I'll pass these comments. Ah. Let me see here. Oh, give me a second here. The comments froze on my end. 1 second. Give me a second here. Ugh. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. I could just cut that out. Francis says, notable people have told me privately that Sam is a DNC operative. Well, I'm glad I fixed that streaming issue. That comment freezing issue, excuse me. For that to be the first comment I get to. Renee says, the take is that Sam Cedars of MSNBC establishment. Bogus opposition. I get it. Francis says Sam is in it for the commissary. Right, yes. Ayahuasca says, LOL, Matt has one of the best laughs on YouTube. Right, if you look at actually go to the old Majority Report episodes with me on it, from 2011 to 2015, that's what most people said that I brought to the table, actually. My laugh. They enjoyed hearing me in the background while Sam cracked jokes. Grim says, I hope Tracy gets the guillotine. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I don't think Tracy's that important for that. Talking about... Dank says, I-24 has grown on me just for regularly bringing on Brooksy. Right, I-24's had Michael Brooks on a lot, right? Well, good for Michael. No, for real. Self-promoting king. Elsit says, one thing I don't understand is why the Russians would need to coordinate and plan with the Trump idiots. Why didn't they just do their stuff? Well, they wanted it to be most effective. I mean, clearly... without their help, we can see that, especially the social media stuff. And when they were trying to reach out to like put together events and stuff, I mean, we could see it was ridiculous. Like it's just ineffective. They just didn't get the American discourse. That's just, I mean, I think you would get it once you really see just... And I'm sure they felt the email hacking would probably be even more beneficial coming straight from the campaign itself, too. Or at least to have their talking points lined up from when they were released by WikiLeaks. Ayahuasca says, I love this guest. Yeah, she's great. Grim says Nixon really should have been publicly executed. Francis Zek says, I hate Biden. And Grim follows it up with heart emoji Parker. Elsa says, LBJ should have spilled what he found Nixon doing with the South Vietnamese government to undermine peace talks. Fuck respect for national unity. Yeah. Like I said, every single president is horrible. In some way. Even the good ones. Grim says, Natsubo is different. Fuck Yang and Tulsi. Right, well, they're bringing... Well, my point was, they're not generic white dude with the same establishment take. You don't have to like their takes, but they're not the same as what we've generally seen. Francis brings up Gravel. Right, forgot about him. Mudmud said he said Tulsi and Molloy eye rolled. I didn't even see that. But listen, I'm no Tulsi fan. Renee says, Buddha Judge makes our calves stay crossed. Dank, Big Money Binder, and I got a little celebration thing when people started realizing I was Super Chat. Renee brings up he was the first Super Chat. My dad says congrats. Grim says I should Patreon first money. Well, yeah, Patreon definitely is the number one because it's reoccurring for sure. Renee giving me some tips on how to make sure Sabu stops biting my feet. You need a vine or string hanging from the ceiling for Sabu to play with. Right. Grim says, or your viewers are broke. Right. I've said probably every single show. If you cannot afford to give me money, do not. These calls for patrons or super chats are for the people listening, watching, whatever, consuming this content who've got 99 cents to spare, $5 to spare, whatever. I mean, period. This is fun stuff. Even if you think you're getting, well, I think there's some educational value too. But you got to combine the two in this day and age. And I prefer doing that, actually. It's more fun that way. I don't know if I could. I probably could, but I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. Just doing a straight news program. Francis says, become a doomed Patreon and Matt will let you name his kid. I will not. No, that's not. Sorry, guys. Wouldn't even let you guys name my cat. Please. Francis says, become a Doomy and you get exclusive Sabu and Sebastian content. Who's Sebastian? Or is that the name you're giving my kid? Ayahuasca says, Binder's interviews are really long, lol. Not complaining, though Parker's was another zinger. I could give you guys shorter interviews if you want. Honestly, if you prefer that. For real. If you let me know in that Patreon post or on the Discord channel. Francis says, studies have shown that doomed patrons grow in height. Those studies have also shown that doomed hosts do not. Mudmud says, YouTube is the new TV. I don't know why people pay for cable. Well, I still do. Mudmud with the ECW chant. When Sabu was biting my feet, Renee says okay, he's going to compose a wrestling theme for Doomed. If you can do that, do it. Francis says in 2018, Biden helped Republican candidates make comments supportive of means testing Social Security. Right. Brian says Biden is going to try to get Kamala as his VP. Maybe. But she's in it right now, so who knows? Mudmud says Bernie has my shield and my sword. Michael says, is labor good? This is something that socialists tend to subscribe to. I disagree. Labor, while necessary, is not good, particularly if it isn't decoupled from survival. I agree, and I think this would be a good episode on its own. So let's leave it there. And I will get someone on for that, actually. I think this is a good... Renee says labor is necessary for solidarity. Yes and no. We'll get more into it on its own. I think it's too much to jump into now, actually. Dang says it will be crazier than the Democratic primary will be crazier than the 2016 Republicans in a certain sense, but there's still no Donald Trump candidate to make it truly wild. That's true, but everything's gonna be a lot closer, which I think will give it its own craziness. Brian says the racist tape story is going to do Mayor Pete in, if it ever comes out. I mean, if he's got it, I don't even know. We'll see. Francis says Biden's stance and record on reproductive rights is also bad, right? Renee is calling me Matt Binder, cat Instagrammer and Twitch political commentator gamer. Excuse me. Brian says you can get a week talking about the Game of Thrones idea for people who haven't seen Game of Thrones. The latest season. You can get a week free of HBO Now and binge. Because Grimm said that they haven't caught up on this season of Game of Thrones because they don't have HBO right now. Brian says Tracy should marry the Doomsday Clock since he talks about it so much. Infinity 8 says 2 years of investigating and the results are no collusion and no obstruction. Well, that's not entirely true. Again, I'm someone who is very skeptical of the whole thing. Perhaps now that we know where most of these skeptics are at, I shouldn't call myself that anymore. But listen, I think the investigation brought a lot of important things to light. Whether you want to argue how effective they were in the election, that's besides the point. And I probably agree with the skeptics on that. I mean, I do, especially with the social media stuff, I do. But who cares if the president or his campaign did something illegal? Then we should know about it and they should pay the price. And from the Mueller report, it sounds like they should have paid the price. Not Trump, though, from what the Mueller report says. Maybe impeachment. Maybe. We'll see. Grimm says Watergate took 6 years. Right. Infinity 8, if they had evidence of collusion, which was what the entire investigation was started for, they would proceed. But they aren't. Well, there's a lot of things still redacted. There's a number of ongoing investigations, especially in the Southern District of New York. Now, I'm not saying hold them up as saviors, please. Again, I think that's bullshit. But I don't think you could determine that quite yet. And Mueller says that there's no evidence that there was no collusion. Francis says Mila Cedar will change MR to an all-slime format. Oh, there's a dog on the roof. Matt's right. We need a revolution. We need to risk the imagination of a new possibility. Well, I didn't say it quite like that. Your wording is a little bit more magical than mine. Infinity 8. Warren wants to end the Electoral College. LOL. Oh, there's a thing going on in the chat between Infinity 8 and Grimm. They're going at it. Infinity 8 looks like he might be our resident right winger this episode, which is great. I invite everyone. Yeah, Warren wants to end the Electoral College. It's great. I agree. Dog on the roof. All the best U.S. presidents just sucked less. Right. That's, yeah. Infinity A says FDR interred literal American citizens. Right. And he was wrong for doing that. That's the thing on my mind when I think of the horrible thing he's done. He did. I mean, again. Dog on the Roof. Some of Warren's new policies are almost center-left at rules. Mud says his interview with Cenk made me question Mate. What about it? I'm interested in that, actually. I haven't watched that one. All right. Grim and Infinity 8 beef is going on in the chat. I'm gonna let that go there. Barry says to me that you have great insight to this stuff too, but I missed the laugh. Thank you, Barry. I think both come together as the ultimate package, right? The laugh and the insight. One would not be as powerful without the other. Infinity 8. Trump had a boost from the 8-year cycle. I'll agree with that. Dog on the Roof. Trump is exactly the candidate Republicans have been grooming their base for. When they get a fascist who isn't as stupid as the rest of the base, it's going to be really dangerous. That is exactly what I've been saying and many other smart people have been saying. Right. And we are lucky Trump is so inept and so stupid and so unable to get things done. People who want a more competent Trump are insane. They don't know what they're saying. They don't get it. Trump being incompetent is a godsend. Francis, oh, no, you're thinking of Seymour. That's the fish. Not Sebastian. My fish is Seymour. Dank says, LOL, compose a wrestling theme? I never knew Renee was Jimmy Johnston. Right. That's a little bit of an insider WWE reference there. Jimmy Johnston is the WWE's former longtime wrestling theme creator. A lot of the classic wrestling themes that even people who don't watch wrestling know. Thanks to Jim Johnston. One month says, Tracy and the Doomsday Clock sitting in a tree. Mud said, talking about Mate, he didn't know something that Cenk brought up, said he had to look into it. Seems weird when you're there to talk. No, I think it's fair. No, that's not. Unless there was something specific he said, I think it's completely legitimate. I've done it before too. To say, hold up, this specific thing I am not aware of, or I'm not, I don't know off the top of my head right now. I need to look into it. That's much preferable to just shooting the shit on it. That I disagree with. Michael Binder, urban planning question. You live in NYC where the citywide speed limit is 25 miles per hour. In the interest of pedestrian safety, do you agree that it should be lower? Yeah. Well, my take is that we need to expand the pedestrian areas, the pedestrian lanes, the islands in the streets, and it needs to be more pedestrian friendly. More room for pedestrians, period. And the outer boroughs, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, the Bronx, driving's a bit different. I can tell you this from experience. Driving in some of those boroughs in certain areas is actually necessary. So those boroughs aside, just talking Manhattan, there should be less cars in Manhattan, completely unnecessary in Manhattan. Unless you're, again, coming from an outer borough specifically to bring something. Like, if you're a band or, I don't know, moving, something like that. Your business requires you to move furniture or, I don't know, whatever. You get what I'm saying. Aside from that stuff, there should be no cars. Should not be driving in Manhattan for transportation. That's what I think. But that was the final comment of the day. I'll give you more about the last one because he's talking about the Mate thing. You're right about that, but this was things you should know if you plan to debate or talk to someone about the topic. I still want to give it to him until I know exactly what he didn't know. Because again, Mueller Report's big. It's big, for over 400 pages. And when I was talking to him, he basically said he was not as knowledgeable about the email hacking stuff. And he basically said that up front and said he's open about that, which again, I think that's legitimate. But yeah, I'll have to know more about that before I comment on it. But guys, thank you for joining me today. And we'll have another great show for you coming shortly. I'll let you guys know about the Restream trial experiment, and we'll talk about Game of Thrones or whatever on that run through. And see you all next time on Doomed. And thanks again for the super chats to you guys who gave me those. Bye now.